There's a lot of controversy surrounding that of animals kept in captivity. Regardless, whether it's marine life, big cats, or birds, there's been studies that prove animals are much better off in the wild. So today here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at the unsettling truth of ocean creatures that are kept in captivity. Dolphins and whales. In recent years, aquatic animals such as whales and dolphins are captured and kept in tanks. This is mostly for entertainment, where people go to parks to watch this aquatic animal perform. Although it's important to remember that some ocean animals are kept in captivity due to research purposes or to help guide them back to health before they're re-released. No matter how we see it, studies have shown that the animals will never be the same if they are taken away from their natural habitats. Some notable oceanic creatures like whales and dolphins often stay in groups, regularly in tight family units. Staying in groups for them contributes to the longevity of their lifespan. Whales and dolphins don't swim alone. You find them in groups as they journey for hundreds of miles in search for food and safe places to stay. There are times when they will stay at a certain location for days. One would think they have migrated there, only for them to retrace their path and return to where they came from. These unique marine mammals can dive for up to 100 meters. When they dive, they can decide to remain underwater for hours. This is where they spend most of their time, with researchers estimating they'll spend around 80% of their time, while they spend the remaining 20% on the water surface. This is why researchers worry when these creatures are kept in confined spaces. Their natural instinct tells them that they need to dive down. And further studies have shown it physically affects their health. They're not able to do this. No matter how big or deep these tanks may be, it's not the same as their natural habitat. No one can compare the life of whales and dolphins in the ocean to their life in tanks. Inside the tank, whales and dolphins can't move in groups, they can't stay together, and this negatively impacts them. There's a limit to what these creatures can do in these confined spaces, and they have to spend the majority of their time on the surface of the water, as there's no space to. Skin problems are another issue faced by these animals if they are kept in tanks. They can easily be attacked by pathogens, which make them aggressive, frustrated, and causes a lot of dangers if let loose. The effects of dolphins living in captivity. We've seen how inconvenient it is to keep ocean creatures in captivity and the effects it can have on the animals, but now we'll take a look at the behavior of these complex creatures. As mentioned, these creatures live in groups, and when out in the wild, each dolphin has a role to play. They work as a unit and can venture out as much as 62 miles or 100 kilometers per day. Each part of the unit assumes an indispensable job in guaranteeing the well-being and prosperity of the gathering. The senior unit individuals show critical basic instincts to the youthful and pass on information. Dolphins are known to have signature whistles, a lot like how people have names, and correspondence among the unit is consistent. Dolphins living in hostage conditions face conditions endlessly not quite the same as those of the sea. Regularly, they are set in new groupings with dolphins that have originated from various families, making a correspondence between them difficult or impossible. Space is restricted, which flashes hostility and disappointment. The surroundings are uncovered and sterile with minimal mental incitement or redirection. Numerous dolphins are consistently treated with ulcer drugs or energizing medicines to lighten the disappointment of bondage. At the point when a dolphin senses a predator and it's about to be attacked, dolphins in the wild can undoubtedly swim away to evade a connection. Rather, hostage dolphins regularly bear scars or rake marks, proof of a conflict with a tank mate, because there is no place to swim to safety. This act can prompt wretchedness and self-hurt practices. When wild dolphins are caught, they must bear noteworthy preparation to adjust to imprisonment. They would be trained on how to acknowledge another eating routine of dead fish. This is inconvenient for a dolphin. Animal conservationists were left angered when it was announced that a dolphin had been left abandoned at a marine park in Japan. What's sad about this story is it's not just the dolphin that was left behind. Many reptiles, fish, and penguins were also left when the park closed down. The Inubasaki Marine Park Aquarium was forced to close its doors after people stopped visiting the attraction. However, instead of finding the animals new homes, the owners cruelly left the animals behind. Honey the dolphin must have gone through sheer torture, according to onegreenplanet.org. The animal shouldn't have been left on her own, and dolphins rely on humans to take care of them. People want justice for these animals that have been mistreated. Honey the dolphin had been in captivity since 2005 when the park claimed they were saving the dolphins from hunting. The park can be seen in an abandoned state with aerial footage. With just a few swishes off her tail, Honey could swim from one end to the other. The footage showed Honey just floating around close to the surface of the pool with very little energy. At this moment in time, there is nowhere for her to go and nothing for her to see. Honey the dolphin is reportedly sunburnt and showing signs of mental distress. The Dolphin Project gave the latest update on Honey, saying the following. Inubasaki Marine Park will be reopening with no renovations being made to Honey's tank or the penguin enclosure at present. Activists in Japan have confirmed that the facility's plan is to breed Honey and sell her, along with the penguins, to China. What happens to killer whales in tanks? There are two kinds of whales found in tanks. The first are born in captivity while the others are taken from their habitat and placed in a tank. There is no alternative to what happens to whales in tanks other than a difficult life and untimely passing away. A recent occurrence that is still fresh in our memory is Kyla, a popular killer whale living in SeaWorld Orlando. In January 2019, it was reported that Kyla passed on at the age of 30. There is a general belief that whales lived much longer in the wild, and had Kyla been in her natural habitat, she could have lived up to 50 years old. Whales are huge creatures that can cover vast distances in a day. They don't just swim because they can or for fun, but because it is part of their survival to search for their fluctuated diets. They're able to plunge to depths of 100 to 500 feet, and conservationists have observed them doing this many times in a short period of time. While in tanks, we can all agree that whales have no place to get away from strife and, in this manner, experience the ill effects of not swimming for long. Whales are said to be emotional creatures, and inside these tanks they're not able to just swim away, but rather have to just lie there and accept their fate. Once again, photographs that have surfaced over the years have shown numerous whales having wounds brought about by tank mates. Although this does happen in the wild, it's reported that this happens much more in captivity. Whales experience broken teeth due to extreme boredom, and it's said they do this because of stress-related issues and because they're bored. Whales in captivity often have their teeth chipped and broken. Why can't a great shark be kept in an aquarium? There are reasons you won't find great sharks in tanks. Some think great white sharks are kept away from aquariums because of their tendency to cause harm to humans, since they are known as a man-eater. But the shark's safety is the reason they are not put in tanks. Sharks, like most fish, inhale by taking oxygen from the water that goes through their gills, while some fish can siphon the water all through their gills utilizing their mouths. Sharks, like the extraordinary great white, needs to be continually in motion for water to enter their gills. This implies that when sharks stop moving, they begin to debilitate and battle to relax. This can't be done in aquariums and they pass away. Along these lines, the primary motivation behind why great white shark can't be contained is that they are migrant and are adjusted to voyaging unimaginably long separations rapidly. Along these lines, they battle in the little tanks of all aquariums and creating wounds from imprisonment. Another reason why great whites are not found in aquariums is that it takes a crazy measure of assets for the aquarium to pull. But what do you make of dolphins and other large oceanic creatures being kept in captivity? The best swordsmen in human history were said to be those that dedicated themselves to their art. They would spend countless hours mastering their technique, and if good enough, they would pass these skills on to younger warriors. It's been said that we will never truly know who the greatest warrior or swordsman were, as many have perished and been forgotten. However, there have been stories and legends that have been passed down, and these have helped us to understand what some of these individuals did to achieve these skills. All over the planet, there were stories of great warriors, and some of these were said to have never lost a duel. It's these individuals that have inspired TV shows and movies, and thanks to historians, we have been able to unravel the mysteries surrounding some of these warriors. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at the most legendary swordsmen throughout history that were unbeatable. Sasaki Kajiro, a widely known Japanese swordsman who was born in the year 1585, is Sasaki Kajiro, also known as Sasaki Gonryu. He was born at a prefecture which borders between Ishikawa Prefecture and Gifu Prefecture. History has it that he grew up to study Trujuru of sword, but there was no concrete evidence to back up who his master was. Nevertheless, two people were mentioned and one of them was rumored to have trained him. This was either Kanamaki Jisai or Toda Sagan. Sasaki stayed with his master until he had a fight with his master's younger brother and defeated him. After this, he left his master and founded his own school of Japanese swordsmanship, named Ganryu. A part of Japanese history said that he was 18 years of age at that time when he left to travel to various provinces. Because of the fame his school carried, and due to the fact that he had been regarded as a successful swordsman because of many jewels he won, Sasaki was honored by a Japanese samurai warrior, Lord Hosokawa Todoki. Sasaki was also known for his unique sword, which he started by wielding a no-dashi and used one he called Minoho Shizu. One of the popular jewels he had during his lifetime was one with Mamoto Musashi. History will not be fair and completed Miyamoto isn't mentioned when narrating the life story of Sasaki. Miyamoto had heard about the success story of Sasaki, so he challenged him to a duel. There were several unrelated reports about the duel, but the common one is that Mamoto Musashi intentionally came late for the duel to unsettle Sasaki Kajiro. Sasaki almost won the fight, but he was blinded by the sunset behind Miyamoto, who struck him on the skull with his oversized wooden sword. This was the last fight Sasaki fought before he passed away on the 13th of April, 1612. Regardless of this story, he's still known today as one of the greatest warriors to have wielded a blade. Sukara Bodin. Sukara Bodin was born in the year 1489. Bodin, earlier known in his lifetime as Bodin Yoshikawa of the Hitachi province, was adopted by the Sukara family and named Sukara Shinemon Takamoto. Bodin's adopted father was a warrior. He trained him in the Tenshin and always looking to learn more skills. He went ahead to learn warrior's aesthetic. He didn't stop there. He traveled around Japan meeting with skillful swordsmen and training with them. This helped him to be knowledgeable and skillful in his quest for becoming a great warrior. By the time he had honed his skills, he became a rich titled peer of the realm. The classic knight-errant with a lot of followers and students. Bakken could hardly travel without a full entourage by his side. He became popular for his innovation of a new and unique Kashima style of kenjutsu. He had it in mind to set up his own school, so he went to seek inspiration and permission from the deity of Kashima Shrine. After this, he founded Kashima Shintaro, which brought a new idea and ways of teaching the people of Kashima the local martial arts. There were reports that Sukara Bodin had a duel with Mamoto Musashi, but this report was later dismissed as it had no basic fact. History showed that Musashi didn't meet with Bodin as the latter had died 13 years before Musashi was born. Bodin died of a natural cause and interestingly, though he had dueled 20 times in his lifetime, fought 37 battles and had over 200 records of winning. His passing on didn't occur on the battlefield or in a duel. Nano Takako, another swordsman that made this list, is Nano Takako. Unlike the two swordsmen mentioned previously, Nakano was a woman. She is considered to be one of the best female warriors to grace the battlefield. Nano Takako was born into the family of Nakano Hanai and Koko in a city called Edo in Japan. Being the eldest daughter of the family, her parents enrolled her for a training in martial arts under the protection of Akaoka Daisuke, a very brilliant and smart kid. Nakano was fast in learning the martial and literary arts. At a point in time, her teacher adopted her as Nakano became more focused in martial arts. She was under her adoptive father for a long time and graduated into becoming a martial arts instructor. Nakano migrated to Aizu and was one of the warriors that fought in the Battle of Aizu. In fact, she wasn't just a fighter, she was the leader of a female group who fought independently in the battle. Nakano's exit in the world occurred during the war against Agaki Domain. History has it that Nakano fought fearlessly in the battle and ended the lives of 5 to 6 samurai who wanted to capture her alive. She was later shot in the chest and she fell on the battleground. Nakano knew quite well that her enemies would capture her head and parade it as a trophy. She wasn't ready to be disgraced, so she told her sister Yuko, who was with her at the battle, to cut off her head and have it buried. Yuko heeded to the request and saved Nakano the shame by cutting off her head and having it buried under a pine tree in Hakai Temple. Her legacy remains strong to this day, as during the annual Aizu Autumn Festival, Groups of girls can be seen wearing headbands in her honor. Donald McBain moving away from swordsmen in Japan. Donald McBain was a Scot, a notable swordsman, a colonel, and a fencing master. Born in the year 1664 on a Scottish highland. A list of the greatest duelists of all time won't be completed if Donald's name is not mentioned. At the age of 23, Donald McBain ran away from home and joined the British Army under the name Duke of Marlborough. After becoming a full-time soldier, most of his service was within Europe. Donald McBain fought in the War of the Spanish Succession, which happened between 1701 and 1714. He also participated in 15 engagements and 16 fights, including Blenheim in 1704 and Malplaquet in 1709. McBain was full of surprises during his lifetime, as he was also an author. Most people know him as a book author, and not as a swordsman. He released a book in the year 1728 which he titled The Expert Swordsman's Companion. He passed away on April 12, 1732. Mamoto Musashi. The last swordsman to be mentioned is that of Mamoto Musashi, who also doubles as an author. Musashi was a samurai without a master or a lord. He was a well-renowned strategist and philosopher, and well known for his double-bladed sword. Record has it that Musashi was never defeated throughout his duels, which spanned up to 61. Musashi didn't grow up to know his father. He was raised by his uncle Dorin in Shoryan Temple. It was during his stay with his uncle he learned Buddhism and basic skills such as writing and reading. Musashi was recorded as having eczema on his body that he contracted in his infancy. This was noted by many around him, but it didn't stop him from achieving his goal and becoming an honorary title holder in Japan, Sword Saint of Japan. It has been reported by some that this did affect his personality for a short period of his lifetime. Another interesting thing about Musashi is that it said he never took a bath, and the reason for doing this was because he never wanted to be caught off guard. He would always want to be close to a weapon just in case an enemy decided to do a surprise attack. The Book of Five Rings, which was personally written by Mamoto Musashi, gave a lot of insight into the life history of the great warrior. The book stated that Musashi had his first duel at the age of 13 and defeated a powerful adept at the age of 16. There were reports that Musashi's passing on was as a result of a thoracic cancer he had. He was writing his final book titled, "But what do you all think of these incredible swordsmen and warriors?" For thousands of years, humans have been looking up to this dance. Just outside of our blue marble are mysterious objects just waiting to be discovered. Every year, scientists make incredible discoveries in regards to celestial objects. With the advent of new technology, it's enabled us to make new discoveries at a much faster rate than before. The Hubble is the first optical telescope to be placed in space. Over the years, scientists have used Hubble to observe the universe and distant planets, and this has allowed us to study objects that we didn't think existed. The Hubble explores the universe 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it's operated by a team of specialists on the ground. Many people were excited when NASA announced that black hole had been discovered that shouldn't exist. This caused researchers to question current theories on the universe. This new report states that this black hole is approximately 250 million times heavier than the Sun, and it can be found at the center of the spiral galaxy NGC 3147. One thing that NASA has come forward and said is that based on current astronomical theories, the disk shouldn't be there. But because of this disk being so close, it gives scientists and researchers a chance at testing Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. One of the researchers said the following about the discovery. "We thought this was the best candidate to confirm that below certain luminosities, the accretion disk doesn't exist anymore. What we saw was something completely unexpected. We found gas in motion producing features we can explain only as being produced by material rotating in a thin disk very close to a black hole." This discovery was published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. Lead author Stefano Bianchi went on to say the following: "The predictions of current models for gas dynamics in very faint active galaxies clearly failed." NASA went on to say that this black hole in particular is malnourished, and that this is because there is not enough captured material to feed them regularly. Further saying that the observed thin haze of infalling material puffs up rather than flattening out. Another researcher said the type of disk we've observed is a scaled-down quasar that we did not expect to exist. It's the same type of disk that we've seen in objects that are 1,000 or even 100,000 times more luminous. And as mentioned, the predictions of current models for gas dynamics in very faint active galaxies clearly failed. NASA ended by saying that they hope to use the Hubble telescope to hunt for similar compact disks. One thing that people may not be aware of is that black holes are very hard to observe. This is because no light can escape from them, and so they're invisible. One way we know where these black holes are is by watching the behavior of things close by. This is because black holes have a massive effect on nearby matter. Researchers have recently managed to find out that gravitational waves have been sent out from a black hole. Our universe holds a massive amount of galaxies along with an even more countless number of mysteries. Over the years, black holes have caused much speculation in the scientific community. Though these findings have made scientists question the very nature of reality, these incredible discoveries of supermassive black holes have helped us to better understand the true nature of our universe. Recently, astrophysicists come forward and said that they've detected mysterious gravitational waves. It was then put forward that these were created by a black hole when it collided with a neutron star. The theory behind black holes was more than just shrouded in mystery, and it was not until a man by the recognizable name of Albert Einstein helped humanity to realize that space and time interwoven and connected in something we refer to as the fabric of space-time. The mathematical theory of mass then being able to stretch and distort this fabric, similar to that of a rock resting on a cloth, led to an innovative idea. When the scientists picked up on gravitational waves, they stated it can allow them to study astronomical events occurring in the universe. The researchers said that what they were seeing was the merging of a black hole and a neutron star. At the moment, more study is needed. But if this can be confirmed, it's thought this could help us to confirm that black holes and neutron stars can coexist in a binary system. One of the researchers said the following about the event. It's like listening to somebody whisper a word in a busy cafe. It can be difficult to make out the word or even be sure if that person whispered at all. What some people may not be aware of is how big these black holes are. For example, there is a black hole that's known as SDSSJ, and this black hole is so massive that it's more than 12 billion times the mass of our sun. Researchers began to wonder how could such a large singularity form if our universe is believed to be only 13 billion years old. Today, the black hole continues to be one of the largest, youngest black holes out in space, and is believed to be even larger in nature if we were to visit it. However, given the distortion of space and time, it would be another 13 billion light-years before any information could catch up and show us its true size today. This black hole, however, is incredibly far away. 1 light-year is around 5.8 trillion miles or 9.5 trillion kilometers. So it's fair to say we won't be able to get near it anytime soon. Another interesting discovery is that of the Hand of God. Referred to by astronomers and astrophysicists as PSR B150958, this celestial anomaly is believed to be a roughly 1,700-year-old pulsar that was first discovered back in 1982 by the Einstein X-ray Observatory. It used then state-of-the-art X-ray technology to locate the pulsar and take strange images of the entity that is noted as being more than 17,000 light-years away. At the time, pulsars were relatively unknown objects. There were small rotating dense masses that would emit radio waves and pulsating bursts that were otherwise impossible to explain. It took researchers years before they realized that such objects were formed as the consequence of a star imploding on itself, forcing its electrons and protons to form neutrons that would increase the mass density so large that a single sugar cube of the mass would weigh over 100 million tons. As the star implodes, its rotational speed increases, causing the formation of a massive amount of radio waves as its rotational period emits pulses of such radio waves out in space. It was due to these discoveries that the Einstein Observatory had originally believed that gathering the visual data of the pulsar would prove to be more than enough information to help astronomers better understand the complex movements of pulsars and what can be expected from them in the future, including the rates in which they emitted radio waves and how they were formed. Oddly enough, it appears that the information gathered by the observatory only helped to make the anomalous pulsar far more anomalous. Shortly after data was gathered surrounding the PSR, the object ended up being renamed to the Hand of God, as X-ray images showed what appeared to be a massive hand stretching out from the pulsar and forming a cluster of radio waves. The hamlet structure was so mysterious that NASA experts had a hard time piecing together the projected math that would have caused such a formation to have occurred naturally. Additionally, it appeared that the pulsar was still relatively young, only 1,700 years old and resting only 17,000 light-years away. No new information surrounding the strange pulsar can be gathered, and it appears that not much more can be understood until further data can be achieved. How the hand of God forms still remains a mystery to this day. As of today, researchers have done a great job at unraveling some recent cosmic discoveries. However, there are still many out there that are waiting to be answered. Not all of these revolve around the search for alien life. For example, back in September 2019, a groundbreaking discovery was made by researchers working at the Imperial College of London and the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan. They have discovered the oldest known galaxy cluster in the universe. Researchers have found a galaxy cluster that's 13 billion light-years away from us. This means this galaxy cluster is 13 billion years old, and the scientists are currently observing its 13 billion-year-old physical form. So what do you make of these incredible and mysterious space discoveries? King Tutankhamun is one of the most studied enigmatic figures of ancient history, and fascination into his story continues well into the modern day of Egyptology and archaeology, as further discoveries are made surrounding his strange reign as the last of his royal family to rule during the end of the 18th Egyptian dynasty of the New Kingdom. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be going over 4 of the most mysterious archaeologists and researchers struggle to explain. The Curse of the Pharaoh on the 4th of November back in 1922, expert British archaeologists Howard Carter and famed financier 5th Earl of Carnarvon, George Herbert, unearthed the tomb of the pharaoh Tutankhamun himself and were filled with ecstasy to find it completely undisturbed and within a relatively pristine condition, uncommon to tombs normally unearthed throughout ancient Egyptian expedition sites during this time. As the archaeologists and their team entered the tomb, however, Howard Carter made note to a strange inscription commonly found on ancient tombs written in hieroglyphics that translated to say, "Cursed be those that disturb the rest of Pharaoh. That they shall break the seal of this tomb shall meet death by disease which no doctor can diagnose." Paying no heed to the warning, the archaeologists cleaned out the tomb and plundered the artifacts that remained. Within 5 months, the financier George Herbert would pass away from sepsis after a bite from a mosquito would become suddenly infected and cause severe blood poisoning. 5 months following the passing of George Herbert, his brother, Aubrey Herbert, would also pass away due to a sudden infection that brought about severe blood poisoning and the development of sepsis. Although the curse would see an end for the Herbert family, the curse would begin to affect the close friend of George Herbert, Sir Bruce Ingham. As Bruce Ingham had been gifted a number of Egyptian artifacts before George's passing. One of the artifacts was a paperweight that contained a mummified hand with a bracelet that bore the inscription saying, "Cursed be he who moves my body." Shortly after receiving this gift, Bruce Ingham's house would mysteriously burn down. During reconstruction efforts, the house was hit by a flood, preventing further construction from beginning in the area once again. King Tutankhamun, Warrior King, as researchers and scientists have used the remains of King Tutankhamun to paint a more complete picture as to the nature of his life. They have uncovered a crippling disease caused by the birth defects that arise from incestuous traits. Published back in 2010, the Journal of the American Medical Association found that King Tun had afflictions such as Cola disease, a rare bone disorder that causes the foot to form incorrectly, was infected with malaria, suffered from Marfan syndrome, and had a hormonal imbalance referred to as gynecomastia. It is due to these findings that many scientists and researchers claim that it was incredibly unlikely that King Tut was an active pharaoh in the realm of wartime activities, a duty held with utmost importance to the ancient Egyptian pharaoh of whom was expected to engage and ride into war with his soldiers. Given the supporting evidence of the degenerative diseases held by King Tut, this theory proved to be the most prominent working theory for roughly the past decade. It was not until Egyptologists began sending the surviving artifacts of King Tut for proper analyzation with new state-of-the-art technologies that allowed new evidence to emerge that not only helped to prove King Tut was a far more capable general, but that the pharaoh himself had ridden into battle on more than one occasion with supporting evidence to confirm these claims. When researchers analyzed metallic armor found in the pharaoh's tomb, they had originally believed it to be decorative in use. However, as reconstruction efforts were made to help piece together the old armor, researchers discovered a significant amount of abrasions and damage to the armor that pointed towards signs of use and wear in battle. Given this evidence and emerging pieces of murals and records that depict King Tut riding into battle on the back of a chariot, there seems to be a growing consensus that despite these prominent issues of health and pain, King Tut overcame his illnesses and fought side by side his ancient Egyptian soldiers. King Tutankhamen's dagger. 3 years after the discovery of King Tut's tomb, Howard Carter would discover one of the strangest artifacts surrounding the pharaoh that would lead to further belief of ancient alien conspiracy theory. Wrapped in the mummified body of King Tut were 2 ceremonial blades with strange properties that seemed to challenge preconceived notions of the technology used during the time of King Tut. It is widely believed that the end of the Bronze Age would take place in 1200 BC, and that shortly following this period there would be a collapse that would lead to new tools used in iron and more complex metals. Oddly enough, 100 years before this Bronze Age collapse, King Tut is buried with 2 ceremonial iron and gold daggers that appear to have been created with technology impossible for people to have accomplished during that period of time. It was not until old Egyptian texts revealed details surrounding the daggers that archaeologists began sending the artifacts in for further analyzation. According to the Egyptian scriptures, the daggers were described as being a gift from the gods as they were made from material that fell from the sky. This would lead ancient alien conspiracy theorists to make boastful claims that the daggers were evidence of extraterrestrial intervention given the advanced procedures needed be performed to melt down the iron for toolmaking. In an effort to disprove these growing rumors, researchers had the daggers sent in for X-ray fluorescence spectrometry to better understand how and with what materials the daggers were made. Oddly enough, it would turn out that the Journal of Meteorites and Planetary Science would publish their findings that the blade-specific combination of iron, nickel, and cobalt suggested extraterrestrial origin, arguing that the daggers were indeed made by materials from a meteorite. Sphinx Statue. When the ancient Greek civilization first journeyed to Egypt and laid witness to its incredible methods of construction, megalithic structures, advanced cities and technologies along with the civilization's incredible strides in mathematics and philosophy, not only were they completely intrigued by this, but they quickly worked to try to classify what they saw and provide it with the names we know today. When the ancient Greeks came across the large stone structure that depicted a lion with the face of a man, reminding the Greeks of the stories of the Sphinx recorded in the struggle of Oedipus, they quickly named the structure, the Sphinx, as an ode to their own culture seen in the Egyptian culture. However, outside of this original encounter, nothing else was known about the strange structure. In fact, new evidence discovered during the opening of King Tut's tomb has found that it could very well be possible that the Sphinx structure itself is far older than supposed Egyptian writings and documents proclaim it to be. One of the main reasons for why the Sphinx has been dated its current age of being only 4,511 years old is not due to carbon dating or other reliable efforts made to accurately measure its date, but rather because of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and documents that detail the Sphinx was supposedly created during the reign of Egypt's 4th dynasty. Unfortunately, it was recently discovered that these documents could very well not be legitimate, and that the pharaoh of the 4th dynasty forged them for the sole purpose of taking credit of another past pharaoh's works. A common practice amongst pharaohs to rewrite history and take the honor of a past pharaoh's lifelong efforts. This was discovered not by taking a closer inspection at the Sphinx, but rather discoveries made in the tombs of long-deceased kings of Egypt. Originally a theory posited by the groundbreaking author Robert Temple, there appeared to be overwhelming evidence that the Sphinx we know today was actually an attempt made by a pharaoh of the 4th dynasty to do nothing more than to claim the works of those before him. Evidence for this can be found when analyzing the head-to-body ratio of the large statue. The head on the Sphinx is so small that many had often believed upon first sight that it could have been grinded down from a much more massive structure. The second piece of evidence is provided by the hieroglyphics located at the Temple of Teptifa that outline in great detail that the original god of ancient Giza was Anubis, and the accounts and images of Anubis in his jackal form are drawn all throughout the site in the same pose as of the body of the Sphinx, with no mention of a lion of any kind at the ancient city. Interestingly enough, this exact same pose was discovered in one of the only tombs of an Egyptian pharaoh ever discovered that had been completely undisturbed since his burial, the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Within King Tut's tomb is a shrine to Anubis that demonstrates an exact scale of the Sphinx statue, but with the head of a jackal to represent Anubis, showing in overwhelming evidence that the original statue at the ancient city of Giza was supposed to be that and not that of a lion with a human head. But what do you think of these mysterious discoveries surrounding the ancient Egyptian pharaoh, King Tutankhamun? that modern-day archaeologists are having a hard time trying to explain. Do you have any personal theories as to how and why such artifacts were uncovered and what they could mean for the ancient Egyptian civilization? Some of the most unexplored regions in the world of the mountains that can inhabit the most populated countries. This is due to overgrown wildlife, impossible to pass terrain in the overwhelming danger of overcoming one of the biggest obstacles in nature. This has also led many to conclude that there is strange objects that can be found in these regions. One of these goes by the name of the Mount Ararat anomaly. Noah's Ark is a story that many of us have heard. It details the story of Noah, of whom was given the task of building a massive boat and placing on it examples of the world's animals. Interestingly, in recent years a few researchers have come forward and said that at one point in time a great flood did happen. Recent discoveries by underwater archaeologists suggested this event ended up sinking many cities. One such finding was made of the coast of Turkey, where researchers found traces of ancient civilizations dating back since the time of Noah. One thing that's interesting is many civilizations talk about a great flood, and some of these are even documented. Some scientists don't actually doubt this happened, but have suggested it may not have been as massive as it's made out. For example, one theory is that the Great Flood could have been the flooding of the Black Sea. It's been put forward that rising water levels happened in this region around 7,000 years ago. When the European glaciers melted, it caused the sea levels to rise significantly. Some have even suggested that it overflowed with a force 200 times greater than that of Niagara Falls. Although scientists think that it happened, there are questions about the actual event itself, suggesting there's no way the world's animals could have fit on one boat. With some stating the obvious, such as how would the animals have been on the boat without attacking each other, and how did Noah get the animals on the boat in the first place? Many people are fascinated by the story of Noah's Ark, with some people even trying to build and replicate the entire thing. The search for Noah's Ark is never ending. Most of the search has been done on Mount Ararat in northeastern Turkey. To understand why Noah's Ark was never found, you need to be aware of the fact that the Bible says the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat. This happened on the 150th day of the flood. It's important to mention that Mount Ararat rests upon volcanic strata right on top of sediments which are laid down by the flood. After researchers made their way to the anomaly, they started to carry out some tests. And interestingly, after getting the results back, they confirmed what some believe. The results suggested that inside the anomaly was wood, and that it had been there for thousands of years. They claim this was part of the original structure and say this is proof that the story is found. Turkish and Chinese explorers say they're 99% sure this wood is the real deal. It was discovered by a 15-member team, and after carrying out further tests, they were able to find out the wood in question was around 4,800 years old. Scientists have said, however, that none of this is possible. They say it's not scientifically conceivable that the ark ended up on top of the 15,000 feet tall Mount Ararat, further saying that quite simply there's not enough water on Earth to raise water levels that high. Carrying on by saying, in case you were thinking that plate tectonics raised the mountain's peak since Noah's time, Mount Ararat was just as tall and out of reach then as now. According to mainstream scientists, the anomaly is very unlikely to be an ark. 5 years ago, Pharaoh, director of the Boston University Center for Remote Sensing, told Live Science that believers are interpreting satellite images with a biased outlook. Going on to say the following, up to this time all the images I've seen can be interpreted as natural landforms. The feature that has been interpreted as the anomaly is to meet a ledge of rock in partial shadow, with very thickness of snow and ice cover, but there are those that are loyal to the idea and say this is the real Noah's Arkansas. Another interesting mountain can be found in Queensland, Australia, and it's earned worldwide fame due to its peculiar nature and unending witness reports. The mountain is known as the Black Mountain, and not only is it famous for strange and unexplainable disappearances of even the most talented and skilled hikers and outdoorsmen, but it also appears to be at the center of strange, unidentified creatures roaming the mountain alongside shadowy figures. Many locals have often reported seeing the ghost of a medicine man standing on the many different boulders that litter the mountainside, as if his spirit plays a hand in the strange occurrences. Alongside this, reports have been made that farmers and ranch owners traveling through the area alongside their herds of cattle have completely vanished, with the herdsmen and the entire herds of animals never to be seen or heard from again. Commonly, It's been noted by pilots that instruments of their aircrafts will begin to act strangely, and that compasses will no longer point in the direction required to get a proper bearing when flying over the mountain. The locals have often told stories of travelers of whom were hiking the location, and they would triple fool because they would feel as if hands would come from the ground and try to pull them underneath. Stories regarding the mountain are seemingly unending, and when asking any number of locals, stories will be told from many different perspectives and witness accounts that seem impossible to understand. Some have claimed that the mountain is completely abandoned by wildlife, and that animals will attempt to flee the area if they find themselves near. Others have claimed the mountain has living caves that will swallow and digest anyone who enters. Although nothing is known for certain, the number of reported missing cases seems to be more than enough cause for alarm to warn travelers from ever visiting the location. Over the past several decades, there have been numerous accounts of people going missing while on mountains. This has led to the theory that perhaps these regions are the home to some kind of time portals. The reason people say this is because many have reported losing a large amount of time while on mountains. For example, one hiker detailed that while she was walking on the Andersberg mountain, she saw something strange. She could see what appeared to be a tall humanoid in the distance. She detailed how this person didn't look anatomically correct, saying that the arms, legs, and neck were much longer than a modern human's. As she approached the being, she said she felt very calm, almost as if this being was giving off a positive presence. The being told her that these mountains were used as portals by beings not from this planet. She details that the humanoid didn't tell her where they were from, but did say that humans need to try better and that this planet is incredibly special. She then watched as the beam walked into a bright area and then vanished. Of course, this account was met with criticism, with some saying the person was just outright lying. It does sound unbelievable, but incredibly, this isn't the only place where this kind of thing has been reported. Another place is that of Skinwalker Ranch. The previous owners would tell stories about mysterious crafts flying through holes in the sky. In fact, on one occasion, the owner said he noticed a large object flying through a bright lit air in the sky, saying that the object in question was around 60 feet in diameter and gave off a blue light. In fact, he said this wasn't rare to see either. The whole family who lived on the ranch during that period observed these mysterious crimes. Going back to the Untersberg mountain, they can be found amongst the Elts on the border of the countries of Germany and Austria. Although this site is regarded as one of the prime hiking spots for travelers coming from all around the world just to bask in its scenic beauty, it appears that the mountain holds a more sinister history. Researchers often regard the Untersberg mountain as one of the most mysterious mountains in the world, due to the fact that it appears to be at the center of many different rumors that believe the mountains to hold ancient lost civilizations and strange never-before-seen creatures in its forests. Reports say that travelers will often go missing in this region, and some will encounter beings they can't explain. Sometimes this doesn't always happen though, with some saying they suddenly wake up after being missing for several hours. Not only this, but they have no idea where they've been during this time. As of today, many of these mysterious reports remain unsolved, and those who have lost friends or family members in these regions are left wondering what happened to them. As of today, these regions are still popular with tourism people, and every so often a story will pop up that reminds people why these places are shrouded in mystery. So what do you make of the Ararat anomaly? And do you think it's where Noah's Ark was later raised? Vast radio bursts are not entirely understood by scientists. In fact, a number of these have been discovered, and if anything, the more we study them, the more confused we get. For example, something deep in the vastness of space is a mysterious object, and researchers have said it continues to throw extremely large blasts of radio waves out from around it in all directions, traveling at the speed of light. Fast radio bursts, referred to as FRBs, have always been a mystery for astronomers and scientists, but this new finding might help to shed light onto what might be causing these strange signals. When astronomers turned their direction to the possible sources of these fast radio bursts, they discovered an air with an extremely strong magnetic field, ultimately suggesting that these FRBs come from an unexplainable object that exists in a very intense galactic environment, containing an extremely strong magnetic source. Scientists are still trying to understand what could be causing this extreme magnetic source, and not many theories have arisen since its discovery back in January of 2018. The lead researcher on the matter, Emily Petrov, working out of the Netherlands Institute for Radioastronomy, claimed that researchers are directly probing the local environment of a source in a distant galaxy, said to be responsible for this matter more than 3.8 billion light-years away. The current theory of the cause is said to be that of a supermassive black hole that may be affecting a nearby entity, though any additional information is completely unclear on the matter. Another recent fast radio burst that made the news is that of FRB 180916.J0158+65. Interestingly, it's made the news because every 16.3 days the signal follows a similar theme. Researchers have looked at the data and said that every 4 days it will spit out a burst, but then strangely will go silent for the next 12 days. Not only would this be strange enough if it happened one time, but scientists have come forward and said that it keeps repeating this cycle, causing some to suggest that it comes across as artificial rather than something that would occur naturally. It's not like this has only been happening for a few days either. Researchers in Canada have said this mysterious fast radio burst has been doing this for over 400 days. As of right now, the team have admitted they have no idea what it means, and that all this discovery has done is added more questions in regards to fast radio bursts. More study is needed to try and understand what these mysterious radio bursts are and whereabouts they're originating from. Some have suggested that these bursts could be messages from other civilizations, and as of right now, researchers have not ruled this out. It's exciting to think this could be from an ancient civilization. However, researchers at the moment are just trying to work out why they keep stopping and starting the way they do. Interestingly, this isn't the first time this has happened. Going back, scientists picked up on a fast radio burst that did not seem to match the FRBs of previous pulsar data collection. This FRB is known as FRB 121102, and despite being more than 3 billion light-years away, has consistently sent more than 15 steady FRBs towards our planet. So my question to you guys is, what do you make of these mysterious fast radio bears? And why do you think they keep stopping and starting? Tyrannosaurids were a family of theropod dinosaurs. Some of the most well-known tyrannosaurids include that of Tyrannosaurus eggs, Albertosaurus, Gorgosaurus, and Nano Tyrannus. However, researchers have now come forward and said that a new species of tyrannosaur has been discovered in Canada. This species has been called Thanatotheres degradum, or as it's also known, the Reaper of Death. This dinosaur would have been one of the top predators during its time. Paleontologists have said the dinosaur was discovered by a farmer who was hiking near Alberta. One of the researchers who worked on examining the dinosaur said the following: "The jawbone was an absolute stunning find. We knew it was special because it looked different." Interestingly, scientists working at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology have said it's the oldest discovery in Canada, with the museum announcing the following: "We are thrilled to announce the first new species of tyrannosaur to be discovered in Canada in 50 years. This discovery is significant because it fills in a gap in our understanding of tyrannosaur evolution. This tyrannosaur wouldn't have been as large as T. Rex, and estimations have placed this theropod as standing around 8 feet in height. The teeth from this predator reach between 7 and 9 centimeters, or 2 to 3 inches. The Reaper of Death is said to have a skull that can be easily distinguished from other transers. This is because it has vertical ridges that run up the length of the upper jaw. As of right now, more research is being carried out on the specimen. In recent years, researchers have found new species of dinosaurs that have given them a better understanding of life in the prehistoric world. These discoveries have helped us to better understand how these creatures lived and how they evolved. It was also announced that Canada has given us the heaviest Tyrannosaurus Rex specimen. This Tyrannosaurus Rex was first discovered by paleontologists in Canada in 1991, and the dinosaur was nicknamed Scotty by the paleontologists. As the only drink available to celebrate the discovery of the Tyrannosaurus Rex was a bottle of scotch, and since then the name's dark. However, it took over a decade before paleontologists could painstakingly extract 65% of the remains of Scotty, officially known as RSNP 2523.8, from the hard sandstone that covered it, which was headed by the University of Alberta's Scott Pearsons, a researcher in the Department of Biological Sciences. The discovery was issued in the Anatomical Record Journal. Prehistoric Canada was home to Scotty over 60 million years ago, where this apex predator would have roamed and reached a massive weight of almost 20,000 pounds, which in comparison is a little bit over twice the weight of an average male African bush elephant. This makes it the biggest Tyrannosaurus Rex ever found. Also from the research carried out on the remains of Scotty, paleontologists found out the dinosaur passed away at around the age of 30, which is older than the normal life expectancy of a tyrannosaur. Signs of a broken rib, broken tailbones, and an infection in its jaw goes to show that Scotty, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, did not have the best life. It most likely got into many battles during its life, something it would have wanted to avoid, as an injury to such a large creature would have been disastrous. So what do you make of this new tyrannosaur species? What some may not be aware of is that German inventors are responsible for the things that many of us couldn't live without, with some being so talented that many of them were brought to the United States to work on further projects. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at these 5 incredible German inventions. Did the Germans have any involvement with unidentified flying objects? There were several reports, fictional stories, comic books, and theories that claimed unidentified objects, known as UFOs, belonged to the Nazis. But over the years, evidence for these has been limited. The cigar-shaped flying object was first sighted towards the end of World War II by a group of airmen who were riding at night in a night fighter. According to the report, the flight was around the French-German border when Lieutenant Fred Ringwald saw some lights over the hills. Other lieutenants who were with Fred also noticed the orange lights. Thinking the lights were some form of weapons from enemies, Lieutenant Ed Schluter, who was the pilot of the flight that night, fired at the light and it vanished. That night marked the beginning of several sightings of the flying object. After World War II, several machines were found in secret underground bases in South America, Antarctica, and the United States, which were linked to Germany. The cigar-shaped wingless objects were likened to a rocket, which brought the assumption of Werner von Braun having a hand in it because Werner had earlier created the V2 rocket. It's been suggested by some researchers that they even looked at unconventional means to achieve power. Whispers of an anti-gravity machine were spreading, and this machine was given the name of Diglock. This means the bell. The machine in question was described as being able to manipulate matter and even travel in time. World War II Germany was said to have worked on the project to increase their efforts in the war. Evidence for these claims are limited, however. There are some that have come forward in regards to being contacted by people who were close to the project. An editor of a Polish magazine was contacted in 1997 in regards to a mysterious weapon the Germans were working on. He was given documents that allegedly detailed the craft they were working on and how they planned to use it. Post-war interviews with an SS officer caused confusion when he started talking about a top-secret weapon the Germans had been working on. He told the stories in order to keep himself alive. He told them about something they called the bell and that it was capable of vortex compression and magnetic field separation. The Polish editor even went on to release a book that was titled The Truth About the Wonder Weapon. However, it didn't gain much publicity and was overall ignored as it wasn't able to back up the claims. Walter Baade and supernova. Walter Baade, a German astronomer born on the 24th of March, 1893, is one of the top innovators in Germany. Being a son of a teacher, a physicist, and a mathematician, he would take inspiration from this and earn a PhD and someone who turned the misery that World War II brought into an innovation. After finishing his education and achieving the rank of doctor at the University of Munster and University of Göttingen in Germany respectively, Baade moved to the United States of America and secured a job at an astronomical observatory in California, Mount Wilson Observatory. World War II had started at this time and Baade decided to study the stars in the center of the Andromeda Galaxy. This was possible at that time because there was a blackout as a result of the ongoing war and there was a reduction in light pollution. Walter's research made him realize that the stars have different groups. He also observed that there are 2 types of Cepheid variable stars. Together with a colleague from Switzerland, Walter identified a new category of astronomical objects called supernova. Supernova is believed to be the source of many of the elements of nature. The name coined by the 2 astronomers was first heard and seen on paper when Baade and his Swiss colleague Fritz Zwicky presented their idea at the American Physical Society meeting at Stanford University in the year 1931. There are 2 types of supernova. Type 1 is the one with no hydrogen, while Type 2 does have hydrogen. Fritz Zwicky later came up with 3 additional types of supernova, making it 5 types. Walter Bard passed away on the 25th of June, 1960. Wilhelm Bauer, a native of Dillingen in Germany, was born by an armed, uniformed father who served as a sergeant in the Bavarian Cavalry Regiment. Bauer learned the act of woodturning, but as a result of his love for his father's job, he later joined the army. Bauer didn't join the army as a field warrior, but as an artillery engineer. His main aim was to build submarines. During the German-Danish War, there was a situation in which the German Navy could attack the Danish on the Prussian coast, but the Danish mounted a blockade and denied the Germans access. Bauer saw that as an opportunity to create a submersible ship by joining the study of ship construction and hydraulics, but before he could finish the project, the Germans had already given up on what they were fighting the Danish for. This didn't down the morale of Bauer, as he left Germany and joined Schleswig-Holstein forces. Bauer needed money to fund his idea, and it would not be easy at his new location because of his low rank. He later got help from a fellow innovator and electrical engineer. Bauer was given a small amount to build a submarine. After Bauer proved his worth with the success of the submarine, he was given a huge sum of money to build a better one. Bauer was in the process of building the submarine when the financial cost given was reduced. This affected the plan Bauer had for the submarine. At the end of testing, the submarine failed to deliver. Bauer tried to build a bigger submarine, but all his effort proved abortive. Although there were records that some of his submarines worked for a time, but they ended up being a disaster. Bauer's notable submarines are known as Brantasch and the Sea Devil.
Verner von Braun.
Werner von Braun was born on the 23rd of March, 1912 in the community of Wursitz in the Posen province in Germany. He was the second of 3 children of a respectable Lutheran family. His first gift from his mother was a telescope, and he built up an enthusiasm for astronomy. While in his 20s and mid-30s, von Braun worked in Nazi Germany's rocket improvement program. He helped structure and build up the V-2 rocket during World War II. On the 20th of June, 1945, the U.S. Secretary of State affirmed the exchange of von Braun and his prose to the United States. In any case, this was not reported to people in general until the 1st of October, 1945. Following the war, he was furtively moved to the United States, alongside 1,600 other German researchers, designers, and professionals as a major aspect of Operation Paperclip. He worked for the United States Army on a halfway-range ballistic rocket program, and he built up the rockets that propelled the United States' first space satellite, Explorer 1. In 1960, von Braun was made the director of Marshall's Space Flight Center, a research center under NASA. Von Braun's expertise was involved in the making of Saturn V that propelled the Apollo spacecraft to the moon. He is referred to as the pioneer of rocket and space technology in the United States. As a result of this, von Braun was inducted into an American non-governmental organization tanked the National Academic of Engineering in 1967. 2 years before his death, which was in 1975, Werner von Braun was honored with a National Medal of Service in America. Ralph Henry Baer was born on the 8th of March, 1922. Baer's parents were Lotte and Leo Baer, a Jewish family living in Germany. According to history, Baer was initially named Rudolf Heinrich Baer. At age 14, he was removed from school as a result of his family line and needed to go to an all-Jewish school. His dad worked in a shoe industrial facility in Pirmasens at the time. Baer's family, dreading expanding mistreatment, fled Germany just before World War II and ended up in New York City in 1938. Baer served the American war exertion, increasing an enthusiasm for gadgets presently. He gathered enough experiences in the electronics industry and in the hardware business that he became an engineer at what is now known as BAE Systems. It was during this period he thought of creating games that can be played on television. This was around 1966. With help of his bosses, he worked through a few models until he landed at a brown box that would later turn into the diagram for the principal home computer game console, authorized by Magnavox as the Magnavox Odyssey. Baer kept on structuring a few different consoles and PC game units. Baer kept working in hardware until his passing in 2014 with more than 150 licenses to his name. Baer, a German-American innovator, game designer, and architect, is considered the father of video games because of his numerous commitments to games and starting the computer game industry in the latter half of the 20th century. What do you make of these 5 incredible innovations? Referred to by head researchers into the phenomenon as the Great Devon Mystery of 1855, the Devil's Footprints incident seems to be one of the strangest and most impossible to explain mystery event that people are still attempting to try to find an answer for in the modern day. According to reports back in 1855, many people claim to have seen hoof-like marks and footprints in the snow traveling down in a straight line for more than 40 miles. These strange footprints were later referred to by locals as the Devil's Footprints, as they believed the devil had cloven hooves. The strangest thing about the phenomenon is that the trail spanned 40 miles in a single night after a snowstorm and demonstrated supernatural properties no person could replicate. The footprints were visible over high rooftops, rivers, as well as entering and exiting small drainage pipes that were described as being no more than 4 inches in diameter. Interestingly, around this time there were reports of mysterious men that weren't normally seen in the area. This started to cause panic as some theorized that it could have been the devil visiting Devon, and that with him bringing bad luck to everyone who laid eyes upon the mystery man. A local news station went out to investigate the claim and discovered that there was very heavy snowfall around Devon, Lyme Regis, Charmouth, and Exeter, some of the heaviest they had seen in quite a while. However, the thing that caught their attention was the mysterious footmarks that went on for miles. The initial report was that the footprint was from an unknown species of animal. It was not until 1950, after the publication of several articles asking for more information on the incident, that a full investigation was provided for the strange mystery by researchers and journalists. After compiling first-hand and second-hand accounts, they found startling evidence that the event couldn't have been a hoax. In fact, the original belief of a 40-mile-long track was incorrect, and further information revealed that the track spanned more than 100 miles, with specific consistencies making it impossible for someone to have traveled in a single night. Some have suggested that the whole event was a hoax, but there have been papers that were discovered that discussed the event. Although it's true that the eyewitness account did differ depending on who the researchers asked, there was consistencies with each account. One theory that's been debunked was that it was mice who caused the prints. However, as some pointed out, these animals would have been nowhere near big enough to create these footprints, further saying how did the mice travel so far during the night and accomplish climbing on top of houses and other objects? It seems that all efforts to try and unravel the mystery have led to dead ends or have been explained. There's no local wildlife that matched the description of the footprints that were seen. Some have suggested that the tracks were made by a kangaroo, saying that the animal may have escaped from a nearby zoo or from someone who was keeping the pet. However, this theory was never backed up with proof, and the newspapers at the time didn't report the prints as looking like a kangaroo's. There's still some that suggest the mystery men were linked to the prints, saying that after the tracks were discovered they were no longer reported. However, there's no evidence to back up these men were seen by the locals, just stories that have been passed down over the years. Nothing more has ever been discovered surrounding the event, and no creature was ever seen that made the tracks despite the ground it covered. Another story involving that of mysterious footprints is that of the Indian Army. Over the years, people have encountered large human-like giants living in mountainous regions around the world. These creatures are often referred to as the Yeti and have surfaced across many different countries and continents from all around the world. One recent encounter has come from an Indian military mountaineering expedition team. Incredibly, this team was able to photograph what appeared to be giant footsteps in the by 15 inches. Several of these photographs were uploaded to the Indian Army's Twitter feed. The post said the following: "For the first time, an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team has sighted mysterious footprints of mythical beast Yeti measuring 32 by 15 inches close to Mukalu Base Camp on the 9th of April, 2019. Many theories were put forward, with some believing that the tracks were real, while others said that the Army was just having fun. Others believed what the Army had come across and further said that over the last few decades various explorers have come across similar tracks. Back in 1951, a group of hikers were already making headlines for their attempt to scale Mount Everest and the endless amount of training they put into it. The group came well prepared with the equipment for their expedition, but most importantly, in order to prove they could conquer the mountain, they brought along a state-of-the-art camera to take high-quality photographs once they had reached the mountain's peak. While up there, instead of snapping photographs of the breathtaking views, they took photos of what appeared to be anatomically correct footprints of a strange humanoid-like creature living at incredibly high altitude in the region. The footprints were originally found by Michael Ward. Eric Shipton quickly took a high-quality photograph of the prints while placing down his ice pick next to it to show the length and width of the incredible find. Many skeptics had argued the authenticity of the footprint, but research analysts have found anatomically correct details so perfect that it would have been impossible to fake. The footprints showed that the big toe of the creature appeared to be at the perfect size and volume one would see in a creature of a massive size. The reason behind this is it would need a toe of this size for adequate balance, and the depth of certain areas of the footprint showed a correct distribution of weight that the hikers would never have been able to accurately reproduce. Today, the photograph is seen as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence of the Yeti creature and even helps to shed light into its weight, size, and evolution. As of today, footprints are still being seen in remote regions of the world, including that of Tibet, where many of the locals believing that they share the region with giant men and that they have been living in these regions long before modern times. Another mysterious creature is that of the devil dog of Logan County. Described to share a similar appearance to that of a massive and territorial canine, the devil dog of Logan County has been at the center of a number of strange reports in the area located close to that of the Appalachian Mountains in the United States. Many witnesses in the area claimed to not only have encountered the strange creature when tending to livestock, but that the creature had the supernatural ability of biting into a livestock animal and being able to completely drain it of blood similar to that of a vampire. Many have pointed to the strange coincidences this creature has to the chupacabra, a similar supernatural beast that looks similar to that of a dog and has been known to completely drain the blood out of an animal. Since the 1930s, witness reports in the region have been consistent with the size and shape of the beast that claim the devil dog is somewhere between 3 to 4 feet tall, when it is down on all fours, and that it is similar to the weight of a large bear. Evidence has also been found surrounding the devil dog of Logan County, including massive canine bite marks in trees, recovered drained livestock, and witness sightings detailing the beast in detail. Some have even reported that these creatures can hunt and move in packs, and have been seen out in the denser regions of the mountains through the brush of trees capable of running at exceptionally high speeds throughout the region. Currently, there's been no reported case of attack from the creature, though there are many that go missing all throughout the region every single year. This had led to locals believing that these devil dogs are more than responsible for these strange disappearances and the attacks on their livestock. But what do you think caused the mysterious footprint in Devon? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. It's often a huge misconception that the ancestors of the past were overall less educated or incompetent compared to the people of the present. This statement could not be further from the truth, as archaeological evidence has shown that not only have our ancient ancestors made strides that we ourselves cannot replicate today, but they battled against the elements, disease, and the worst the world had to offer long before they were able to relax and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Just because these structures exist, however, doesn't mean that researchers know how they were created, and today even some of the materials used are of unknown origin. One of these incredible civilizations is that of the ancient Egyptians. Pyramids have become known as one of the most renowned works of ancient humans. The most popular ones are found in Egypt, and the Egyptian pharaohs had them built for them. The pyramids are basically tombs for the pharaohs where they were buried along with their treasure. Traps were also set and different mechanisms were planted so that no intruders could steal their treasure. The method of burial was also strange, as they wrapped their bodies in bandages and left them in altars. Pyramids are also considered one of the 7 wonders of the world, with the Pyramid of Giza said to be one of the oldest and largest pyramids out there. The Great Pyramid of Giza was made 4,500 years ago, and it's had a number of different mechanisms which have fascinated the archaeologists time and time again. The Great Pyramid had 3 swivel doors, and one of them is believed to have been a 20-ton swivel door. The mechanism of this 20-ton swivel door has surprised researchers, as it's not sure how they achieved this. There are many mysteries related to the pyramids, and some of them have only led to more questions being asked. It's estimated by researchers that around 5,000 pyramids may still be existing today. The stones that had been used to build these pyramids weighed between 5 and 10 tons, and to put that into perspective, that's heavier than an elephant. At first, it was believed that the pharaohs had slaves who did all the work, but later contradictions occurred and it was believed that the workers were paid to build these pyramids. The temperature outside the pyramid would have made it near impossible to work in. Researchers have said that during this time it would have been between 20 and 25 degrees. But when you're working for hours on end, the construction of the pyramids would have taken their toll on the wagons. The pyramids were also covered with well-polished limestone, which made the pyramids glitter like gold in the sunlight. This 20-ton swivel door was said to have been so well balanced and built that it could have been opened from the inside with one hand. When the door was closed, it was built in such a way that it would have blended in with its surroundings and would have been near impossible to see. It serves its purpose as being a perfectly secret hidden door that can be used in case of emergency if there ever was one. The door was said to have had 2 parts and been the same color as its surroundings. The archaeologists were not able to find it until they opened it from the inside. This door has astonished researchers and been described as being one of the most impressive themes. Another interesting discovery is that of the intricate tunnel systems discovered under the pyramids in Egypt. The pyramid at Giza was holding a secret for many years, and this came in the form of tunnels, chambers, and caves. When this structure was found, researchers discovered a lot of bats and venomous spiders that had taken up the space. One researcher was able to track down the entrance to the underground structure of the pyramid, and this was by using a book from a previous explorer. He discovered that the caves were hundreds, maybe thousands of years old, and may be the reason why the Egyptians believed in the underworld. Further saying, they may have built the pyramids to conceal the passage, as the meaning of Giza is also the mouth of passages. For a long period of time, nobody had known these secret underground passages except for a few, but now they're coming to light and are raising a lot of questions. The entrance to the underground has been guarded, and strangely the Egyptians are reluctant to let anyone enter. Those who come to see the passages are bombarded with questions about how they knew about this place, and usually only let them enter if they pay a hefty sum. If someone is able to enter after paying, they are usually followed by a military police escort. Experts have claimed there is a lost city in the undergrounds of the pyramids. The unknown Giza Plateau has become even more mysterious after its cavern system. Subterranean passageways and chambers were discovered. These passageways hold walls which are thousands of years old. What made the people more curious is how the Egyptians sealed the information and location, unlike making it public like they'd done with the pyramids. The discovery of the passageways and having little to no information about it shows that history is not being completely passed down. A lot of such places are denied by the Egyptian authorities, even though there is conclusive evidence that these places exist. Comes across as the Egyptians don't want to tell the world about what they know, and are being very secretive about the underworld that's been discovered. The 2 structures that were discovered are the whale shaft and the grotto. The whale shaft connects with the underground as it's a passageway that goes 200 meters into the bedrock beneath the pyramids. Many theories were put forward for the use of this weld shaft that included providing air to the workings, used as an escape route and to repair the king's chambers, but all these theories had been denied. The Great Pyramids were built and included many more tunnels that had been found. The issue is why have some of these channels and tunnels been kept secret and not properly excavated? It's hard to know what's truth and what's fiction. The grotto is a natural chamber in the well shaft and lies beneath the bedrock of Giza, but the base was later used to build and construct a pyramid. It shows how the Egyptians did detailed planning before building a pyramid. Another interesting discovery is there appeared to be a massive underground water tunnel network that ran underneath the Giza Plateau that has long since dried out. This led researchers to look more into what is believed to be initially formed water chambers, and the role they could have played in the construction of the Lodge Pyramid. They found that although water beneath structures usually plays a large role in the instability of the base of the structure, it appears as if the network of tunnels and water chambers found in the pyramids appear to not threaten the stability of the pyramid. This led researchers to believe that the tunnels must have been accounted for in the construction of the pyramid, or possibly added after the construction with the pyramid stability in mind. Still to this day, Egyptologists and researchers are completely unaware as to what the role of these underwater chambers helped to play in the construction of the pyramids. The next thing researchers have struggled to explain is that of the mortar used. It's been reported that the mortar is of unknown origin. Along with its design, the mechanisms used inside the pyramids have also left researchers astonished. Looking at the structure from a purely mathematical standpoint, the Great Pyramids of Giza consist roughly of 2.3 million stone blocks, with each ranging from 2.5 to 15 tons apiece. According to supposed Egyptian documents discovered in nearby tombs and areas regarding the pyramids, the pharaoh recorded that only 20,000 workers built the pyramids over the course of 20 years. If that turns out to be the case according to these ancient Egyptian records, then that would mean to meet this requirement each worker would have to cut a block with perfect precision from a quarry, move this block to the pyramid alone, a task already impossible for a single man to do, and then pull the block of the pyramid into its position without any help once every 30 days. This would mean that each block would need to be placed once every 2.5 minutes, with each of the 20,000 workers tirelessly performing without a break. The main Egyptologists have concluded that the pyramids were built with the simplest of ways. The workers used copper chisels and iron tools, as well as flint, quartz, and direct pounders. Ancient Egyptians did use some advanced methods of constructing, which included large wooden crowbars and wooden sledges. Though despite the defense mechanisms, it's been agreed upon that the pyramid had already been looted and broken in before its discovery. As this is the only way to explain the disappearance of the treasure and the mummy from the pyramid. The architects also found the mortar that was used in the mechanisms, and it's been identified as an unknown object. The origin of the mortar is still unknown, and this has confused the researchers even more. The material has been tested and the mortar has been proven to contain parts of quartz, calcite, and halides. Its chemical composition has been analyzed by researchers, but through various experimentation they were not able to reproduce something having the same material as the mortar. Its durability was also tested in different experiments and it was deemed stronger than stone. So what do you make of these incredible ancient Egyptian discoveries? Living deep inside the rainforest of Madagascar is said to be a mysterious human-like creature. It's been given the name Kalinaru, and encounters are said to be rare. Tribes who live in the region have described the creature as being small and dwelling in caves. They are also known as the Katogi. When speaking with the locals, they say these humanoids have been living on this island for over 2,000 years, and stories about them are quite common in these areas. People mention seeing humanoid-like creatures who are very well adapted to jungle life. They are said to possess hooked claws and 3 backward-facing toes. Their fingernails are long and they have thick layers of hair. As mentioned, these creatures aren't very tall. It's been estimated they're around 2 to 3 feet tall. The only time locals have spoken about them coming in close is when they're trying to steal food. Dark stories have also been told about them stealing people during the night. The dart of this creature is said to be made up of mostly grains and seafood. A more interesting turn is that locals believe the hair of this creature has powers, and some are even said to use its hair in potions. After it's been made up, it's said to be able to give you more energy and overall better health. According to Travel Africa magazine, one local saw one of these creatures behind his village and described it as looking like a really small man, being less than 1 meter in height and having really long fingers. Catching these creatures have proven difficult. Traps have been put out with bait, but all efforts have been unsuccessful. The natives of Madagascar have said the cave systems they live in are considered sacred. Other tales have said that if native tribes have wandered off and got lost in the rainforest, food can be left out, and in return these creatures will help find the lost members. Some have suggested, however, that what people are seeing is actually a creature known as the Ai. This creature is the largest nocturnal primate. It has a dark coat along with 2 bulging eyes. It's easy to see why people could mistake this as being some creepy humanoid. These creatures can grow to be over a foot in height, so that does match reports from the region. Once again, though, it's been pointed out that locals would most likely know the difference between the Ai and this creature. For many years now, reports have been coming out of the Congo of mysterious creatures. The locals have been seeing them for years, and word quickly spread about the alleged creatures being witnessed. One of these is known as Chessie. This creature has been described as being a large serpent-like animal. It allegedly can be seen in the Chesapeake Bay. However, it's also been reported in places such as the Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, and Zimbabwe. The creature is described as being serpent-like and lacking flippers. Over the years, people have been able to get a good look at the creature, and those who have encountered it have said it was over 35 feet in length, with some reports saying the creature can reach up to 40 feet. The creature can often be seen moving through the water. However, it is said that it doesn't like humans, and if you try to approach it, it will quickly vanish. Photographs have been put forward which allegedly show the creature in its natural habitat. However, after being sent off for further analysis, it was revealed that the animal in the photograph was in fact a manatee. With that being said, it does seem like Chessie is one of the most photographed cryptids out there, with various photographs allegedly showing the creature. In fact, one photograph was confirmed by U.S. Geological Survey biologists going back in 1943. Two fishermen noticed something strange in the water near Baltimore. They decided to investigate what it was. As they approached, they said that it was around 80 yards away from their bones, and at first glance it appeared as though it was floating. As they got closer, they could tell the body of the animal was black and its total length was around 12 feet. They quickly left the area after not being able to identify the creature. For many years now, there have been a number of people claiming the creature is a hoax. This is because people have been witnessed placing toys in the water and then taking photos of them. With that being said, there are those that think the creature is genuine, with others saying that it could be some type of undiscovered animal. Skeptics, however, suggest that Chessie isn't a cryptid, but it's rather a large snake. They point to the fact that what eyewitnesses are describing as a snake, and that under certain conditions these animals can take on the appearance of water serpents. As of right now, the Chessie remains a mystery, and to this day it's still being reported by locals. Cadborosaurus, also known as Caddy, is an alleged sea monster. The creature is said to inhabit British Columbia along with various other locations in North America. Those who have witnessed the creature describe it as a long serpent-like creature with large flippers. The head of the creature is debated, with some saying it has a camel head while others have said it looks more like an ancient marine reptile, with some believing it's relatively large, ranging from 35 to 80 feet in length. What's interesting is that it's one of the most witnessed cryptids. It's estimated there's been over 350 reports of the creature in the last 85 years. One of the first reported sightings of the creature was made back in 1933. It was made by a man and his wife who were on a cruise ship at the time. The wife is said to have got the attention of her husband because she saw something strange in the water. After observing the creature for several minutes, they realized it was something they hadn't seen before. They described it as looking like a serpent and having the head of a camel. The next sighting happened in 1934. This was when two government members witnessed the creature making commotion in the water. Again, they described it as being serpent-like with a camel head. By this point, the creature started to become known. The next reports was that of two fishermen who encountered the creature in a bay. What was different about this sighting, though, was that two creatures were observed. The fishermen reported that the first one was around 60 feet in length, while the other was around 25 feet in length. Captain Paul Sowerbay is said to have had one of the closest encounters with the creature in 1939. He said the following: "We were heading north about 30 miles offshore and saw this thing standing around 4 feet out of the water, so I headed over towards it and got a look at it. At first I thought it looked like a polar bear with its ruffles of hair. When we got right up alongside it and the water was crystal clear, we realized it was at least 40 feet in length and had huge eyes. I had an old Newfoundlander as a mate, and he said, 'Do you see the eyes on him? Mouth and nose? I have no recollection at all. I just remember seeing those big eyes, and the eyes seemed to open from top to bottom.' Some have compared this creature to the Hook Island monster. Sightings are still coming in for the creature. Explanation for what people are seeing range from jellyfish to oarfish, but it's said that fishermen wouldn't get these creatures mixed up. For decades, there have been a number of mysterious sightings linked to Pennsylvania's Ricetown Lake. People have managed to capture what appears to be a large serpent-like creature beneath its waves. Some have compared it to the Loch Ness Monster, in that eyewitnesses who have come forward describe a creature strikingly similar. The best photograph was taken by a local fisherman, and when it surfaced, it was featured on many online websites. The managing director of Ricetown Lakes said the following about the photographs and sightings: "We've known it's been in there a while now. It's a private creature, but it does come out around April every year. A local biologist had this to say about the creature. I believe it must be a vegetarian. We have not seen any evidence of this animal taking fish, geese, otters, or ducks, so I would suggest that our swimmers and boaters are very safe. It appears this animal's habits are similar to a manatee's, which are completely herbivorous and gentle. The increase in weed beds around the lake are probably providing more food in the shallows for herbivores, and that would increase sightings. People have been reporting this creature for years, and sizes for it range from 40 to 60 feet. It's said to have a bulky body with long flippers. One person said the following about their encounter. I visited Ricetown Lake with my partner back in 2011. While here we decided it would be fun to feed the fish. After feeding the fish for several minutes, we noticed that many of them quickly swam away. We didn't think much of it and thought that perhaps the fish were full. However, my partner pointed out something around 40 feet away from us that I can explain. A large shadow appeared under the surface of the lake. And if I had to guess, I would say it was around 35 feet in length. I have no idea what it was, and I think we may have seen the lake creature. Due to this creature being similar in appearance to the Loch Ness Monster, some have suggested that what people are seeing is the same thing. While skeptics say that waves under certain conditions can take on the appearance of serpents, other natural phenomena and perhaps even local wildlife could be possible explanations. As of right now, though, everyone who has come forward with their encounters seems credible and have no reason to lie about what they're seeing. Throughout the years, astronomers have made some incredible discoveries, and it seems like there's no slowing down. Each year brings a new board of space discoveries, and some of which baffle the world's greatest minds. From planets whose existence cannot be explained to many others that could host life, history has seen some incredible discoveries of exoplanets. One of the most interesting ones is that of 2007 or 10, also known as the largest unnamed world in the solar system. A lot of dwarf planets are a mystery to science and can be found tucked away in the outer reaches of our solar system. With Ceres residing in the main asteroid belt that lies between planets Mars and Jupiter being the only one exempted, other minor planets are found lurking in the depths past Neptune. They are small, cold, and very distant from Earth, making their detection and observation very difficult for astronomers, even when large telescopes are used. This explains why most of them have only been discovered in the past decade. To study these far-flung worlds, scientists usually need to combine data from various sources. Some astronomers combine data from 2 different sites of space observation and notice something surprising. A minor planet known as 2007 or 10, which was significantly larger than they had initially thought. From their findings, 2007 or 10 was the largest world with no name in the solar system and number 3 in size of the current list of around 6 dwarf planets. They also reported that the object is dark and rotates at a rate slower than any other body that orbits the Sun, with its daily spin taking almost 45 hours to complete. The scientists used NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, which is currently known as K2, together with archived data from the IR Space Observatory. K2 made an additional important contribution in their study, the approximate size of 2007 or 10. The revised diameter of 2007 or 10 is around 950 to 960 miles, which is approximately 60 miles wider than 136,472 Makemake, the next largest minor planet, or approximately 3 times smaller than Pluto. Haumea, another minor planet, is oblong-shaped and wider than 2007 or 10 on its long axis, but with a generally smaller volume. Previous estimations that were based on data from the telescopes suggested that 2007 or 10's is roughly 795 miles. Researchers said that without being able to study the rotation span of the object, they'll struggle to understand the overall brightness of the object. K2's observation of the object's very slow rotation helped the team construct models that were more detailed to reveal this minor planet's anomalies. The measures of rotation also gave hints in brightness changes across the surface. According to new measurements from the Kepler and Herschel telescopes that measured the sunlight fraction reflected and the sunlight fraction that was absorbed and radiated back respectively, 2007 or 10's diameter is approximately 155 miles longer than it was initially thought. This implies that it has more gravity and a darker surface as a result of a larger body reflecting the same quantity of light. Previous studies reported a reddish color on 2007 or 10 that may be due to surface methane ices. According to András Pál from the Konkoly Observatory in Hungary, the planet is most likely covered in methane ices, nitrogen, and carbon monoxide. The naming of this planet is yet to be done and depends on its discoverers. Most minor planets are named after a particular characteristic they exhibit. However, little is known of 2007 or 10 to name it officially. The chances of getting to 2007 or 10 are very slim, mostly because scientists took almost a decade to get to Pluto. Astronomers can, however, continue studying this world with the current advanced satellite technologies. Another interesting discovery is that of ERAS 134816124. A recent observation has been made that has the potential of solving the mystery of how stars are made, hinting the possibility of planets forming around the biggest bodies of the galaxy. According to an astronomer Stefan Krauss at the University of Michigan and fellow at the NASA Sagan Exoplanet, astronomers have been in the dark about the formation of massive stars because they tend to be very far away and covered in dust. Krauss and his research team used NASA's Large Telescope Interferometer to focus on ERAS 134816124, a star that is 10,000 light-years away in constellation Centaurus. The star is approximately 20 times the mass of our Sun and 5 times its radius. After bringing together the lights from different telescopes, they obtained a very sharp view of the core of this star. From the observations, they discovered a massive disk surrounding the gigantic young star, and Krauss stated that it was the first instance something of this kind was witnessed, further saying that it's similar to what's seen on young stars that are a lot smaller. The disk's presence is strong evidence of star formation. The process of star formation is the same for small stars and even for the much larger ones in the galaxy. Growing from the dense dust buildups instead off from mergers of small stars as previously proposed by some scientists. NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope was used to confirm these results, and from the findings the star is seen to fling disk material from its polar regions, same as observed with smaller stars and their dust disks. The discovery of ERAS 134816124 has brought the possibility of the planet's ability forming around massive stars, just like they formed around the Sun when it was a lot younger. Krauss said that in future we may observe gaps in dust disks that have been created by orbiting planets, even though their long survival is highly unlikely, because being around such a massive star will lead to a planet's destruction from the intense radiation and stellar winds. Massive stars like ERAS provide the precursors for the beginning of life somewhere else in the universe. Previously, the disks made of planet debris surrounding massive stars that were more mature were detected from NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope, backing the conclusion that planet formation can occur even in extreme environments. The recent and previous observations made from the Spitzer Space Telescope were done in May 2009 before the Space Telescope was out of its liquid coolant, starting its war mission officially. One of the most fascinating discoveries made by researchers in recent years is that of Kepler 78b, or as it's known in the scientific world, the planet that shouldn't exist. Scientists say that a surprising alien object is the closest object in the solar system to being Earth's twin in composition and size. That mystifies scientists and is only 20% wider and approximately 80% more massive when compared to Earth. Interestingly enough, further tests showed scientists that this planet has a density that is almost the same as that of planet Earth. Andrew Howard of the Manoa Institute of Astronomy said that this is the only planet discovered out of the solar system that is similar to Earth in most respects, at almost the same size and the same density, implying that it is possibly made of the same components as Earth. Kepler 78b, whose discovery was reported in September 2013, orbits a star similar to the Sun in constellation Cygnus about 400 light-years away from planet Earth. It orbits approximately 900,000 miles from its parent star, which is like 1% of the distance between Earth and the Sun, with its daily spin taking 8.5 hours to complete. Howard said that the surface temperatures of this world are likely to reach 3,680 degrees Fahrenheit. This telescope flags alien planets by noticing the brightness dips that come as they pass in front of their parent stars from the perspective of the spacecraft. Kepler allows astronomers to estimate the size of an exoplanet. However, it cannot detect the mass, and thus more strategies need to be employed to study the composition and density of an exoplanet. One proposal is the technique of radical velocity, which measures the wobble in the light of a host star which is induced by an orbiting planet's gravitational pull. The team then decided to use the high-res spectrograph from the observatory in Hawaii. Interestingly, two teams were studying this planet and they discovered that Kepler 78b was around 1.6 times larger than Earth. From Howard's reports, these figures agree with the error range that was independently estimated by the two teams, suggesting that these new estimations are the most accurate. Both studies suggested that with the density of Earth being very close to this planet, Kepler 78b's composition is probably similar to Earth's, complete with an interior that is rock and an iron core. However, Kepler 78b's tight orbit has puzzled scientists. A researcher said in a statement that the exoplanet could not have formed there as a planet cannot form inside a star. What is certain, however, is that Kepler 78b's days are numbered. It will continue orbiting nearer and nearer until its host star's immense gravity tears it apart, probably in 30 billion years. The extremely hot Kepler 78b is unlikely to hold any alien life, but with that being said, there could be complex life forms that have adapted to these conditions. We always think of life on this planet when thinking of life out there in the universe, when in reality it will most likely look completely different. What do you make of these interesting space discoveries? Though there were many ancient civilizations that had existed during the 12th century BC, suddenly and quite unexpectedly nearly every civilization was wiped from the face of the earth except the cities of Egypt. This phenomenon was recorded as the late Bronze Age collapse that soon bled into the early Greek Dark Ages as only small villages of humanity survived this sudden catastrophe. For many decades, the cause of such an occurrence had widely been unknown and shrouded in mystery. That was until the ancient language of the Egyptian hieroglyphics had been decoded and allowed us to read the historical records captured at the time by the last standing ancient civilization. This record has led to countless theories and endless debate amongst Egyptologists, classic historians and archaeologists since its findings. Over 2,000 years before the Vikings sailed from today's Scandinavia to plague the Europeans, the ancient world empires faced a terrifying sea-traveling enemy of their own, and that has remained a mystery up to today. During the Bronze Age, the Sea People caused terror in the Mediterranean and Egyptian lands, but their origin and identity has remained a mystery until this day. An inscription written in the 13th century BC said they came from the sea in their ships of war and nobody could defeat them. Reportedly, by the historical accounts of the ancient Egyptians, armies of what had been referred to at the time as Sea People attacked and demolished the cities of man. In fact, the descriptions of the armies of the Sea People describe monsters and giants coming from the oceans and waging war against all of civilization. The reasoning for why this sudden onslaught has yet to be better understood, but what's surprising is the vast amount of theories surrounding the events. Accounts continue of the Egyptians attempting to track the source of the beasts that appeared humanoid in nature, and it's reported that they found hundreds of footprints coming from the beaches of the Mediterranean Sea. Today, after uncovering vast art depicting the battles, documents detailing the events, and further evidence of war and tactics used against the destroyed and forgotten civilizations of the past, the proof of the account of the Sea People appears to be overwhelming in nature. As a matter of fact, the events are so overwhelming that the discussion surrounding the event in the scientific community has been completely shut down, and further theories or attempts at uncovering the truth are treated with both disdain and ridicule. Regardless of this ridicule, however, many researchers continue to attempt to understand the mysteries of the Sea People and remain restless in their pursuits. Perhaps one day we will better understand whether these accounts are of mythology or true history. Until then, the accounts of the Sea People are shrouded in creepy events and terrifying mysteries. The Egyptian inscriptions provide almost all there is to know about the Sea People. Apart from the references in the letters from the Assyrians and the Hittites that have contributed were also mentioned in the Egyptian literature. The tale of Wanamum, where they appear as familiar figures in the Mediterranean land. Who were the Sea People that invaded Egypt? Everything known about the Sea People comes from apocalyptic inscriptions that were made by the empires they battled, especially ancient Egyptians, since they did not leave any written records or monuments of their own. One early reference goes back to 1300 BC during the ruling of Pharaoh Merenta, as he claimed of killing 6,000 seafarers as they allied with the Libyans. An even more detailed account from Maurice III, who fought with the Sea People back in 1170 BC, described them as having moved southwestern towns in Syria, Turkey, Levant, and Cyprus, desolating its residents and leaving the city as if it had never existed. He also described them as being made of a tribe confederation like the Shadena, Teresh, the Luka, the Peleset, the Shikalesh, the Tursa, and the Akawasha. Archaeologists proposed that the Shadena originated from North Syria, moving later to Cyprus and ending up as the Sardinians. The Teresh and Luka probably originated from western Anatolia. The Ekwesh have been related to the Ahiyawa in the records of Hitti, who may be archaic Greeks who colonized the western Anatolian coast and the Aegean Islands. They consisted of sea raiders who invaded the towns at the Mediterranean coast between 1276 and 1178 BC, focusing mostly on Egypt. History considers them as the major contributors to the collapse of the Bronze Age between 1250 and 1150 BC. Where did the Sea People come from? Scholars are still not certain of the origins of these groups, but many trace them to Sicily, Turkey's Anatolia region, or the Aegean Sea. Some modern historians have a theory that the ancient Egyptians knew the origins of the Sea People based on what they wrote about them. Due to the fact that these Egyptian inscriptions did not mention the origins of the groups, some historians believe that their origin was so obvious that it did not need to be written down. There are some speculations with little evidence that the Sea People were in fact the Philistines of the Bible, who probably battled with ancient Israel. But who they are is still a mystery. Their origin has also been proposed and strongly disputed to be Trojan from Italy, Philistine, or Minoa. However, nothing has been discovered so far to shed more light on the question of their origin. Whether all this is true or not, the fact remains that the Sea People's origins are not written in any records, and that information is therefore lost to history. What did they want? Equally mysterious is the motivation of the Sea People to ravage the Mediterranean. Some historians believe that they were displaced from their original home by natural disaster or famine. Other researchers speculate that their migration was a result of a more human disaster, war. It states that the Sea People were Trojans displaced after they lost their kingdom to the Greeks, the Trojan battle. Whether the Trojan war story is true or is just a mythical story is unknown. The Sea People attacked many cities and Mediterranean settlements but seemingly had an affinity for Egypt, attacking 3 different pharaohs. Their intentions for an attack, however, despite much research, remains a mystery to this day. What happened once they took over Egypt? Even though their origin remains unknown, tantalizing pieces of information about the terror that the Sea People inflicted on the ancient worlds are available thanks to the inscriptions the witnesses of the devastation left. Most of the current studies of the Sea People come from the inscriptions left behind from Merimizes III's reign. Emmanuel Diroux, a French Egyptologist, came up with the term Sea People in 1855, but reports claimed that they originated from the sea or islands, but did not specify the particular ones. There were 3 pharaohs who recorded their interaction with these raiders: Ramesses II Merenta, who was his son and successor, and Ramesses III. All 3 pharaohs were victorious over their enemies, and their inscriptions provided more detail about the existence of the Sea People. Ramesses II's inscriptions. Ramesses II was one of the greatest rulers of ancient Egyptian history, with accomplishments including securing his borders from invasion by nomads and also securing trade routes that were vital to their economy. In his inscriptions, he mentions the Sea People as allies of the Hittites and mercenaries in his own army. He does not mention anything about their identity or where they came from. Ramesses inscribed his victory over the Sea People in a war off the Egyptian coast. According to what he inscribed, the battle involved only the Sherdon tribe of the Sea People, and after the war many were recruited into Ramesses' own army. In his inscriptions, Ramesses made the impression that he neutralized the threat. However, his successors' inscriptions claimed otherwise. The inscription of Morenti, the Sea People, troubled Morenti's reign, especially after they allied with the Libyans in the Nile Delta invasion. From his inscriptions, in his 5th year at around 1209 BC, the Libyan chief allied with the Sea People invading Egypt. He stated the Libyan allies as originating from the seas to the north, naming their territories as Sherdon, the Denon, the Luka, the Peleset, the Shikalesh, the Tursha, and the Akawasha. Since then, researchers have tried to find out where the mentioned lands were and what they are currently known as. Marenta describes the Sea People in his inscriptions as formidable adversaries and took pride in defeating them. He claimed complete victory over the Sea People, securing the Egyptian borders. He celebrated his victory by immortalizing its inscription in the Marenta stele, announcing how he brought peace to his land by subduing the enemy. The Marenta stele is the first to mention Israel in history, but interestingly he was and not a land or a country, and scholars are still not certain of implication of this reference. Marenta was satisfied for defeating these raiders and securing the Egyptian borders for the future. He did not know that the Sea People would return. Ramesses III inscription during the reign of Ramesses III. These raiders attacked the Kadesh trading center of Egypt, destroying it and then attempted to invade Egypt. They started with quick raids at the coast before entering the delta. In 1180 BC, Ramesses III was victorious over them, but they forcefully came back. The countries he mentioned in the Sea People's Confederation are not certain. However, it's clear that they are the same people who joined the Libyans to attack Egypt during Marenta's reign. Where did they go afterward? Ramesses III knew of the clashes of the Sea People with his predecessors and opted for guerrilla tactics instead of field engagements with his predecessors. He organized ambushes along the coast and down the Nile Delta, hiding his archers along the shore so they could, after confirming that no crew on the ship were alive, they set the downing vessels on fire with flaming arrows. After crushing the sea attacks, Ramesses III focused on what was left of the Sea People on land. He used the same tactics and finally defeated the Sea People in 1178 BC. After being defeated by Ramesses III, the Sea People disappeared from history. However, according to San Jose State University, the Egyptians allowed the remaining Sea People to settle in today's Israel and Palestine. Despite the win over the Sea People, the war was too expensive and it drained the Egyptian royal treasury, rendering it unable to pay its tomb builders. This resulted in the first recorded labor strike in history where the workers refused to work until they were fully paid. But who do you think the Sea People were? A number of tough female warriors have shaped history as they fought a patriarch state by their physical and mental strength, ultimately showing that warfare was not a domain of men alone. Women were mostly restricted to traditional roles in ancient civilizations. However, some fierce women broke this tradition both at home and in the battlefield. One of these individuals was a Viking warrior that was buried with weapons. A female warrior who was for a long time believed to be a Viking could have really been a Slavonic female warrior who over 1,000 years ago had migrated from present-day Poland to Denmark. The discovery has come during debates about the existence of the female warriors during the age of the Vikings and the roles they played. Researchers started by locating the woman's burial chamber on an island in Denmark and found it containing bones and Arabian coins from the 10th century, a period when Denmark was inhabited by Vikings. This particular grave was the only one containing weapons in the whole cemetery, a fact that made the researchers conclude this was the female Viking warrior's grave. A literature and Scandinavian language researcher at the University of Bonn in Germany took this study from a different perspective. While studying women's graves that had weapons from the 9th and 10th century in Denmark, he noticed that the axe in the woman's grave and the top of grave both suggest that she was of Slavonic origin. In particular, the axe seems to originate from the southern region of the Baltic Sea, which is possibly today's Poland. In an interview with Science in Poland, he said that the Slavic warrior presence in Denmark had more significance than initially imagined. The rising number of female fighters in the Viking Age has in recent years become a hot debate topic. After the 2017 announcement that the decorated warrior's bones in the Viking settlement of Sweden were actually female, researchers were astounded and wanted to carry out more tests to try and get a better picture of the individual. Some wondered whether the graves were warriors as they contained weapons of high quality, imported uniforms, a gaming set, and 2 horses. The Burka warrior, unlike other Viking women who were buried with weapons, was not dressed in any female clothing or jewelry. Charlotte Johnson, a co-author in the 4th issue of American Journal of Physical Anthropology, said that in the Viking world, identity based on gender was something they could only speculate about. She continues to say in another paper that the Vikings probably didn't consider this particular warrior as a woman. Despite there being analysis that suggested the bone structure was of a female, conclusive evidence was presented in 2017 by Charlotte and her team, explaining that DNA obtained from the teeth and bones confirmed this individual as a female. These findings were, however, criticized, with some critics even suggesting they were testing the wrong bones. Others suggested this could have been a female warrior who dedicated her life to battle, and was someone who would have been respected by her peers. Despite Vikings braved with weapons before, none of them can compare to what was found in this particular grave. The amount and type of objects that were found suggested a professional fighter, and the game board pointed towards a role of command. Additionally, a tasseled cap, which was originally set aside for leaders, was found at the grave. Even though the results of this study may lead researchers to re-examine Grams, Johnson and her team of researchers have embarked on new projects. Another female warrior is that of Grace O'Malley. Grace O'Malley was a fierce woman who for 40 years defied the English monarch by ransacking English ships, fighting any forces that would try to take land that belonged to her family. She defied all odds in a male-dominated world and earned the allegiance of her subjects in a winning team. Grace was born in 1530 to Owen Malley, the chief of the ruling clan of the area around at the time. They accumulated wealth in piracy and also legal trade with Spain and France. After her father passed on, Grace was made queen of her clan, as she knew about navigating local politics through the formation of strategic alliances. During that time, the use of women in the creation of alliances through marriage was common, and was intended to bring more power to the involved men. Grace O'Malley, however, reversed this principle as she was married twice. And on the contrary, it was her power that increased each time she married. After the passing of her first husband in 1554, Grace inherited his wealth. In 1567, after a year of marriage, Grace divorced her husband, retained his castle, and maintained his loyalty as an ally to her kingdom. She had many men and numerous ships at her disposal when she was in power. The tales of Grazer O'Malley's courage and skills in seafaring have been passed down in Irish folklore. One of the accounts tells of when she was attacked by a Turkish imp, and this happened a day after she'd given birth. On the boarding of the Turks, she jumped off the bed, storming into the deck while armed with blunderbusses, and took out the Turkish officers. O'Malley easily captured the Turkish imp, after the remaining Turks were shocked by her taking down their officers. In 1574, England sent ships to end Grace's expeditions, but she repulsed them in a humiliating retreat. Grace O'Malley was matched in 1584, when Sir Richard Bingham's men killed her elder son and captured her youngest, taking control of her stronghold and confiscating her wealth, ultimately bringing her to her knees. With no other option, Grace O'Malley made history in 1593 when she sought audience with Queen Elizabeth I. Historical accounts of the meetings vary greatly. However, what is certain is that Elizabeth ordered that O'Malley's son be released, and her properties returned in exchange for O'Malley's support in the English battles against their rivals. O'Malley proved to be a worthy rival to Queen Elizabeth's military capabilities. She was among the few rivals to earn the respect of the Queen of England. The last years of Grace O'Malley remain a mystery. She passed on in 1603, which is the same year that Queen Elizabeth I died, but her memory lives on. Another female warrior is Lozan. Lozan is among the fiercest female warriors in history, equipped with her sharpness of mind, excellent fighting skills, and mysterious talent of accurately predicting the enemy's next move. Nicknamed Apache Joan of Arc, she was sister to Victoria, a prominent Apache chief. Born in the 1840s, Lozan portrayed abilities that were past her age, even in her childhood. The role of most women in Apache were confined in the home and community. However, Lozan defied this, betraying more interest in the art of war. She became a warrior and a medicine woman, a role that was uncommon amongst her people. She was a right-hand woman to her brother, using her talent mostly to help him as he planned his attacks. She could predict the enemy's location, making the Apache a step ahead in wars. She was a tough woman. One of her legends narrate that she at one time delivered a child amongst the desert while they were on the run from a U.S. cavalry. Their people had been invaded so many times by Mexico and the U.S. military that they were always on the move. Despite this, she did not give up. She did all she could to protect her people. In the 1870s, Chief Victoriani's people were forced out of their homes to the San Carlos Reservation, where living conditions were deplorable. They moved from this reservation in 1877 and started raiding other places, all while trying not to be captured by the U.S. military. Lawson was always beside Victoria as they battled the Americans. As they fled the American military, Lawson was an inspiration to the women of Apache to cross the Rio Grande that was surging. During the final times of Victoria's campaigns, Lawson escorted a mother who had just delivered across the desert to the Apache reservation, far from the trail's hardships. They only had a 3-day food supply, 1 rifle, a knife and a cartridge belt as they set on a journey across an area inhabited by U.S. and Mexican Calverines. On their journey, she killed a longhorn for meat using a knife as she was afraid that a gunshot sound would sell them out. She stole a Mexican horse to be used by the new mother and escaped through a valley of gunshots. It's then that she learned of the Mexican army's ambush on Victoria and his people. Aware that she was needed by her people, she left the reservation and crossed the desert undetected by the Calvaries and rejoined her people. She fought beside Geronimo, who was now the new chief. According to historical reports, Geronimo and his followers included Lawson fled after hearing rumors that Apache leaders would be captured and imprisoned on the island of Alcatraz. They had been negotiating peace treaties which the Americans dismissed. Lawson was imprisoned after Geronimo's surrender and died of tuberculosis in 1889 while in confinement. So what do you make of these impressive female warriors?